Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to plunge into some pretty complex topics and pull out those key bits of knowledge for you. Today, we're tackling something that's, well, fundamental to how everything works online, but often totally unseen. Service accounts.
Yeah, you can sort of think of them as this silent, specialized digital workforce. They're running behind almost every app, every system you use.
Exactly. They're the unsung heroes, maybe. Or if you don't handle them right, they can be pretty serious vulnerabilities hiding in plain sight. So our mission today, give you that shortcut to being really well informed about these things. We're going to unpack what they are, why managing them is just crucial.
It's essential.
Yeah, for organizations definitely, but also for your own understanding digital security, and then how to tackle the tricky parts. Okay, let's unpack this. So foundational stuff first. What is a service account precisely?
Okay, so unlike, say, your login for email, these are special accounts. They're mainly used by applications, automated processes, that sort of thing. They use them to interact with other systems, maybe access data or resources.
Right. So the key thing is they're not tied to a specific person. Human accounts are about who you are. Service accounts are more about what a system needs to do.
Exactly right. And at their core, service accounts facilitate automation. That's the main goal. They let computers or scripts perform tasks, access things, all without needing a human to step in. That's how you get efficiency.
And when you start looking at their kind of core features, you really see how powerful they are. Like number one, automated access. They're just the backbone of automation, integration, managing all these IT systems and apps. Without them, things just wouldn't work.
No, the digital world would grind to a halt pretty much. And tied right into that is elevated privileges. This is a big one. Service accounts often operate with pretty high permissions. They need them to do their jobs within the systems.
Okay, and that's where it gets really interesting and risky.
Precisely. That power they have is exactly why handling them correctly isn't just, a good idea. It's absolutely critical.
It strikes me there's a real tension there. They need power to function, but that power is their biggest weakness. It's like a paradox.
It is, yeah. Their usefulness is their vulnerability.
So that whole least privilege idea, giving them only the bare minimum access they need, that's not just jargon. It's like the core defense.
It's fundamental. Yeah. It's about limiting the damage before anything even happens, containing that blast radius, as you say.
Got it. And then there's the fact that they are explicitly non-human users.
Right. Totally distinct from your personal account, which is linked to you, an individual. These represent software, a background service, a process, no human logging in.
And because of that, their authentication mechanisms are often quite different too, right?
Oh, yeah, very different usually. While you might use a password, maybe facial recognition, whatever, service accounts typically rely on things like API keys or cryptographic tokens, certificates, stuff like that.
And that matters because...
Well, it matters because how they prove who they are is different. And often those credentials, the keys or tokens, might be stored somewhere, maybe even hard-coded in an application.
Ah, okay. So managing that kind of credential is a whole different ballgame than managing human passwords.
Completely different security challenge.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so this brings up a really, really crucial distinction. We're zeroing in on these powerful non-human service accounts. But it's super important to understand how they differ from the accounts you, the listener, use every day. Our sources actually highlight the human ones, too.
Right, and it's not to confuse things. It's actually quite clever. They highlight the human-linked accounts, email, social media, banking, work logins, all that, to give you the full picture. The whole spectrum of digital identities we all need to secure. Because managing your email login versus managing a service account, very different strategies needed.
So for those human accounts, the ones tied to people, the advice is pretty standard, but always worth repeating, right?
Absolutely fundamental. Use strong, unique passwords everywhere. Don't reuse them. Enable two-factor authentication, 2FA, wherever you possibly can. Seriously, do it.
Okay.
Regularly check your security settings, update passwords, be careful about phishing emails, dodgy links, keep your software updated. Basic digital hygiene, but essential.
Right. Those are your personal digital defenses. Okay, so now we've drawn that line clearly between human and non-human accounts. Let's swing back to our main focus, those powerful service accounts. Why is managing them properly so indispensable for any organization?
Well, there are several really non-negotiable reasons. First, and maybe most obviously, security. Like we said, they often have high privileges. So if one gets compromised, Unauthorized access can lead to data breaches, messing with systems, shutting down services, huge impact.
So proper management means locking down those privileges,
Yeah,
limiting them.
to the absolute minimum necessary. That's the goal. But you asked earlier, is that hard in practice?
Yeah, systems change, right. How do you keep it just the minimum without accidentally breaking something important?
It's a constant balancing act. It really is. It needs ongoing attention. Automation helps a lot. Over-restricting can break functionality, so it's tricky. Requires vigilance.
Okay, what else?
Second, compliance. Think GDPR, HIPAA, SOX, lots of regulations. They demand strict controls over all digital access, and that includes service accounts. You have to prove you're managing them properly to prevent unauthorized access, ensure data integrity. Failures here mean big fines, bad PR.
Right, the legal and reputational hammer.
Exactly. Third is operational efficiency. Believe it or not, good management actually helps things run smoother. You prevent having all these old, forgotten, dormant accounts just lurking in the system. Those make audits a nightmare, complicate access control.
Like digital dust bunnies.
Yeah, exactly. Digital dust bunnies that could suddenly bite you. Cleaning them up makes IT teams way more efficient.
Can you give us a quick, maybe anonymized example of what one of those dust bunny headaches might look like?
Sure. Imagine there was a big project 5 years ago. It had a service account with high-level database access. Project ends, everyone moves on, but nobody deactivates the service account.
So?
Yeah. Years later, maybe those old credentials leak somehow, could be anything. Suddenly, there's an active account with high privileges just sitting there, a perfect backdoor for an attacker, all because it was never cleaned up.
Yikes. Okay. So efficiency, compliance, security, what else?
Fourth, overall risk mitigation. Poor management is just a massive security risk. It can potentially undermine an organization's entire infrastructure. So you need strong authentication for them, regular reviews of their access, constant monitoring of what they're actually doing. It's proactive defense.
And funny.
Finally, incident response. If or maybe when a security incident happens, good service account management is like your lifeline. Having clear documentation, what accounts exist, what they access, their history, it speeds up everything. Finding out what happened, containing the damage, recovering. It turns a potential catastrophe into something hopefully manageable.
That makes a lot of sense. And beyond those 5 big ones, you also mentioned a couple of general best practices.
Yeah, just fundamental stuff. Encrypt sensitive data. Always. Both when it's moving across networks and when it's just sitting stored somewhere.
Encryption everywhere.
Pretty much. And monitor account activity regularly. Look for weird patterns, logins at odd hours, unusual actions. That's how you spot trouble early. Basic, but crucial.
Okay, so moving from the general principles now to something more specific, our source material really drills down into one particularly challenging type. Shared service accounts.
Ah, yes. The thorny ones.
They sound like they come with a whole extra layer of problems.
They certainly can. So a shared service account is basically one account used by multiple people or maybe multiple applications to get into shared systems or databases. The idea is often to streamline things, make it easier for a team or a set of processes to interact with a shared resource.
I sense a but coming.
Oh, a big but. The security risks are significant. The absolute biggest problem is the lack of traceability. Accountability, really. If 10 people or 10 different processes all use the same login, how do you know who actually did something or what process did it?
Right. Impossible to pin down.
Exactly. And that anonymity is dangerous. It makes it easier for insiders to misuse access without being caught, and it gives external attackers a way in that's hard to trace back. It can become this untraceable gateway.
Okay, so if there's such a known headache, how do organizations even try to manage the risk? What are the strategies?
Well, there are several key things you have to do if you're stuck using them. First, rigorous access control and that principle of least privilege again. You absolutely must give that shared account only the bare minimum permissions it needs, nothing more. Limit the potential damage if it does get compromised.
And does that include things like multi-factor authentication?
Ideally, yes. If possible, add MFA so it's not just a password. Also, network segmentation is key. Basically isolating these accounts, putting them in their own secured part of the network, like a digital vault. So if one is compromised, the attacker can't easily jump from there to other, more sensitive parts of the network. Limit that lateral movement.
Containing the blast radius again.
Precisely. Second strategy, auditing and monitoring. This is non-negotiable for shared accounts. You need detailed logs tracking everything done via that account. You need monitoring tools watching for unusual activity, maybe alerts set up for suspicious actions. You need to be able to react fast.
So constant vigilance.
Constant. And third, there are specific best practices for shared account management. The number one piece of advice, avoid them if you possibly can.
Huh. Okay. Easier said than done sometimes, I imagine.
Often, yes. Use individual accounts with role-based access controls whenever feasible. That's always better. But if you absolutely must use a shared one, then you need super strict password policies, frequent audits, maybe temporary elevation of privileges only when needed, and definitely regular rotation of the credentials. Change that password often.
Okay, this brings up the obvious question then. If they carry such big risks and need all this careful handling, why on earth do organizations keep using them? It feels like inviting trouble.
It's a really good question, and the answers are usually very practical, sometimes even unavoidable. First off, sometimes it's just operational efficiency and convenience, especially in smaller teams or maybe less mature IT environments. It can seem simpler to have one account for a shared task instead of managing lots of individual ones.
Cutting corners, maybe?
Sometimes perceived as efficiency, yeah. Then there's automation and continuity of processes. For things like automated backups or other scheduled jobs, using a shared service account can seem like the easiest way to ensure the process runs without needing unique credentials every time. It just works.
I see. What else?
Well, sometimes it's ease of management for cross-functional teams. If you have people from different departments all needing access to the same tool or system, a shared account might seem simpler administratively. Also, temporary access for third-party vendors. This is a common one. Instead of setting up full individual accounts for contractors who only need access for a week, a temporary shared account can sync quicker.
Ah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Setting up a whole user profile for someone just doing a quick job would be overkill.
Exactly. And a really crucial reason, honestly. Legacy system limitations.
Old tech.
Yeah, some older applications or infrastructure just weren't built with modern identity management in mind. They might literally not support individual accounts with granular permissions.
So you're forced into using a shared account because the system demands it.
Pretty much. It becomes a necessary workaround, despite the risks.
Fascinating. So it's not always a choice. Sometimes it's a constraint.
Definitely. Other common uses you see are things like application-to-application communication, one system needing to talk to another, automated system processes, like we mentioned, backups, accessing shared resources like network drives sometimes uses them, and infrastructure management for IT teams working across many systems.
It really highlights that tension, doesn't it, between what's operationally necessary or just easier and what's ideally secure.
It's a constant balancing act. Organizations have to weigh the risks against the practical needs and find that pragmatic middle ground.
Wow. Okay, this has been a genuinely illuminating deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground on something often hidden away. We've really unpacked what service accounts are, those non-human workhorses, often with high privileges driving automation. We drew that critical line between them and the human accounts you use daily. We explored why managing them effectively isn't just important, it's absolutely essential for security, compliance, efficiency, resilience too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we really got into the weeds with shared service accounts, the unique risks, the mitigation strategies, and, maybe surprisingly, why they're still so necessary in some cases.
It covers a lot. And if we sort of step back and connect this to the bigger picture, just thinking about how complex it is to manage even these non-human digital identities, it kind of raises an important question for you listening out there. How often do you really take stock, audit, and truly understand all the digital access points, both the human ones and the automated ones within your own world, whether that's personal or professional?
That is definitely a lot to mull over. Thanks for diving deep with us today.